you see my screen?
No, sir, it's not visible now.
No, sir, it is not visible.
Okay. I think you'll have to give me permission to share, if I'm right.
No, sir. No need.
Because when I'm trying to, let me just try a window. Okay. Now can you see?
No, not yet ready. Okay, sir.
You can?
Now
Yes,
it is
yes.
okay. Now it is okay. Okay.
1 second. Let me just put it into the PPT mode. We are all still learning on the technology front. So that's what I just mentioned now. This is a new thing that we are all learning as to how we, in spite of the fact that we have been with a lot of organizations and there is a lot of things that we have acclaimed, but still we're still learning on some of the things. Can you see?
No, sir, it's not visible now.
Sir, the screen disappeared.
Is it okay? I'm just trying once more. Let me just.
Okay.
Are you able to see what I'm? Is it coming or?
We can only see your face, sir. Only your screen is visible.
Okay. One second. Huh?
It's okay.
I think now you should be able to. It's just popping up.
Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
1 second. See, the moment I put it into PPT mode, it is going off. That is what it is. Yeah, so I think we'll have to do it without the PPT mode. 1 second. Sorry about this. No, Dr. Anu, can I send it to you and maybe you can beam it? Is it possible?
Yes, sir. Of course, sir.
Can you tell me your email ID as we speak? Or Lunomina, whoever. I can just send it to either of you and you can just present it.
Sir, it is there in the chat box. Anumis has given. It is in the chat box, sir. The email ID is there.
1 second. So in the interest of time, as I send it to Dr. Anu, I would love to, hear from some of the participants over here as to what is their thought on mergers and acquisitions. Anybody volunteers at least, if you can just tell me, what have you thought about, what is your idea about mergers and acquisitions? Anyone? Okay. Dr. Anu, I've just sent it to you. So you can beam it as I'm talking.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Sorry for this initial, technical glitch, but they always say that some things which initially you have a, issue, it always, comes properly. So mergers and acquisitions, it's one of the main, I would say industry movers today, because what we are seeing in the industry across any global industries or Indian industry or whatever, people are actually putting up companies, people are having ideas. Now, if you see the last about 10 to 15 years, a lot of new entrepreneurs have actually, come in. I mean, small ideas which actually, became big, ideas which were started in a garage, which were started in a bedroom, ideas which people just dreamed of in one of their sleep, and then they created a new product, new service. I mean, we look at a lot of examples, like for example, Apple. You talk about Facebook also. These are ideas which actually came up. So where I am coming at, in the last about 10 to 15 years, there has been a lot of ideation which has actually come into play in the global industry. With all these ideas actually coming in, as you would all know, once there are different phases of an organization. I'm sure that in your what do you call education, you would have definitely you would have learned this. There are different actually segments. Yeah, I think now we can see. There are different segments of an organization, and yeah, you can just put it on the first slide, Dr. Anu. The first slide, please. Yeah, we'll keep it there. Thank you. Yeah, and there are different actually what do you call time frames of an organization. Now we start from an inception of an idea which translates into an entity, and then there is a scale in the life of an organization wherein it reaches a point wherein to move into the next growth phase becomes little difficult independently. As the saying goes, it took us easy to come till here, but then it's not going to take the same easiness to go there, right? And that's where this mergers and acquisitions actually came into play. And it's a wonderful kind of a subject, and people who are passionate about investment banking, mergers, it's more of a creative kind of a profession, I would say. And I'll just start about who am I. I think Dr. Verghese Antony and Mina, you have already spoken, so I will not go much into it. Dr. Anu, if you can just move to the next slide. So I started my journey. Yeah, second slide, please. I started my journey in '94 with Ernst & Young from the audit segment, and I'm basically a chartered accountant, a cost and management accountant. And I never wanted to come into this particular profession, to be very frank. But I think the interest actually came from creative kind of thoughts. I always used to love advising people, and always love to teach people. So that is what actually brought me into this particular profession. And I then went on to do my what do you call chartered investment and securities as a as a profession, which is what you call as a CFA in UK, and then moved out to the investment banking segment. And it was pretty new at that time. People were talking about commercial banking, people were talking about agro banking, you name it, security. But investment banking was something which many people did not know, and I myself did not know about it. Then I started learning, and initially, I'm talking about 99, 2000, when I was in the Middle Eastern market. And that was a huge kind of a bubble, which was actually, happening in the global market. Players like Lehman Brothers, I'm sure that if you have heard about Lehman Brothers, Carlyle, these are investment banks which actually, came into the picture. And then it was so new, and it was really curious for all of us to actually know what is investment banking. And let me just define what is mergers and acquisition. I know Dr. Varghese have already mentioned about it. Mergers and acquisition, I'll tell you a very simple example. All of you are young, you're just getting into your live stream. You'll definitely get married, right? That's the simplest example I can actually think about. And when you decide to choose your partner, there is something called as, what is happening is a marriage is nothing but is as good as a merger between two individuals, right? And mergers is all about meeting of corporate values and meeting of the common alignment factors that two companies actually have. It's not easy. Again, I go back to the example, like you and your partner, you may get married. It will definitely take some time to understand what is it that he or she likes, what is it that the other person likes. One person may like coffee in the morning, the other person may like tea, right? So how do you actually understand that? Sometimes the merger or the marriage, God forbid, it doesn't go in the manner in which it was supposed to. And that's when we have exits. We have, in the human life, we have divorces that we see. But in the corporate world, we call it as exits, or we call it as carve-outs, right? So mergers is nothing but meeting of two companies and getting them into one vehicle. In a very, very simple word, investment banking, mergers and acquisitions, a lot of jargons that you will actually come across. But if you can understand that in a very, very simple manner, just like a 5-year-old kid will actually understand, that's the most simplest trade secret I can actually tell you. And mergers is nothing but two companies merging together, marrying together, is what mergers is all about. And when one company is saying, I want to marry you, let's suppose you as a person go to your partner and say that, I want to marry you, I'm proposing to you. So you're acquiring. Sorry, I'm using a wrong example probably, with due respects to everybody. But from a corporate world, when company A decides that I want to do a takeover, I want to actually acquire you, that's what is called as acquisition. Whereas merger is that two companies sit together and then they say, you know what, we both are doing the same business, or I would like to get into this business. For example, Tata acquired Jaguar, right? Tata was in the automotive sector for long, and they decided, okay, we are going to acquire you. So this is the two. Don't get confused between mergers and acquisition. It is just two sides of the coin. If there is a merger, at some particular point of time, there would have been an acquisition also. But if there is an acquisition, it is not required that there is a merger. I hope I'm not confusing you. Let me put it once again. So when you have a merger, what ideally happens is that the two companies, the two brands can come together and there may be one particular brand which may be retained, right? That is what a merger is actually, But in acquisition, what could happen is that It could be acquired, but it will be retained under the same brand that it was actually there. We'll come back to this, but just food for thought for you. This is something which you will hear in the market a lot, but don't get confused. It is a jargon. As I said, in the investment banking and M&A kind of a world, there are so many jargons that people use. And I still remember when first time I was doing something in London, and most of the people from Lehman Brothers, we used to meet for lunch in Oxford Street, and some guys, the Brit guys, they used to talk so much about jargons about M&A. So I used to ask them, what is it? And they couldn't. It was just jargonizing. They didn't know what is it all about. Okay. So with that thought, I'll move on to the next slide, Dr. Anu. Yeah. Are you not able to put it into the PPT mode, Dr. Anu? No, not that. PPT mode. Not that. No, at the end. The PPT mode. The last one. No, it's fine. Leave it. It's fine. Just go on to the next slide. Slide number 3. Slide number 3, please. Yeah. We'll go on to slide number 4. Yeah, okay. What are the benefits of a M&A deal? There are benefits as well as there are drawbacks when it comes to an M&A deal. And what is a deal? A deal is nothing but a transaction, right? When we are going to acquire a company, let me take the example of Facebook and WhatsApp. Okay. Or maybe Flipkart and Mindra. That's a deal. A deal is going to happen. A marriage is going to happen. So in an M&A deal, there are a lot of things which are advantages for both the companies, as well as there are a lot of things which are disadvantages, as a matter of disadvantage for both the companies. From an advantage, one is basically you're economizing. There are two companies wherein you may be spending the same cost. Some cost, like you may be spending, maybe company A may be having an SAP. I'm sure that you would have heard about SAP, which is enterprise resource planning, software and so on and so forth. And people spend a lot of money on that. Maybe both the companies may be having it from a technology perspective. People may be, you may have engineers over here also, you may have engineers over here also, you may have chartered accountants over here, you may have chartered accountants over there. Once you merge, you may not be required to spend so much amount of cost on labor or people. So if each company was spending at least about $20-30 million, maybe the combined cost would be economized to only about $10 million. So that's a cost which is as a benefit that actually happens. The next one is process. From a process, what happens is that, let's suppose it's an industrial process, okay, and that's the best example. Maybe you're having an assembly line, and there is a process in which you do your assembly line, and you can try to economize if you're going to merge things. For example, there could be the company which is getting merged. Company B may be manufacturing maybe an OEM, manufacturing a particular component in the particular car that the other company is manufacturing. Now, currently, the main car manufacturing company is actually buying from the market, where the cost is more, which adds up to the cost of the vehicle. If the merger happens, if the acquisition happens, that cost will be minimized. So, because what you're doing is that you're changing the process. You could even be changing on certain rudimentary, redundant kind of processes which are existing in both these entities. Correct? And last but not the least, this is very beautiful, which is about the finance or the markets. The market share actually expands. Like if the market share of a particular company was at, say, I don't know, maybe about 6%, the combined market share is going to actually move to at least about 8%, 10%. Right? And there is another point to it, your finances. You may be having credit lending. No companies as, I mean, you're all educated in finance, you're all, you know the best things that what goes into the finance of an organization. It's not only equity, it's also debt, right? And each company, when they merge towards each other, they get married to each other, there is a lot of upswing that we can get in terms of the finances. The availability of funds, the availability of capital employed. I'm using little jargons. I know that you understand these. Will be high. Correct? So what happens? Because of all these things, your leverage funds actually increase. Equity may or may not increase from a wholesome perspective. But when leverage is increasing, your return on investment or your internal rate of return of a company always increases. That's again food for thought. Keep it in your mind. Maybe during the question and answer, if anybody wants to have any clarifications, I'll be more than happy to answer that. That's on the benefits as such. What happens with the drawbacks? What you see on the screen, these are the potential drawbacks that are practically seen in many investments that gets companies that gets merged or acquired. I'll tell you a classic example which is very favorite of mine. I'm sure that you would have heard about Hamam soap, right? It used to be a favorite soap. When at least I was a kid, I really loved Hamam. And Hamam was a soap which was under the ownership of Tatas. Now, Unilever or Hindustan Lever during those days said, you know what, Hamam is actually having a huge market share and we need to get this. So a lot of discussion between Hindustan Lever, Tomco, Tata Oil Mill Company. And Tomco initially said, no, we are not going to do that because Hamam was their flagship kind of a product. Right? But finally, the deal happened. But what happened for Hamam, after the deal happened, the market share, if you look at the market share of Hamam today, it's very, 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 very less. Right? What happened? Hindustan Lever or Unilever destroyed that particular brand. I'll be very vocal on that. Because they changed the smell of the soap from what it was earlier. And if you look at perfumes, if you look at soap, all these things are very, very passionate individually. There's a lot of a personal kind of a, thing that is actually involved. If you have been using a perfume, even if I tell you, this is the best perfume, you may or may not actually, say, accept it. There's a lot of chance that you may say, no, I'm not going to, take this. I mean, I've been using a perfume for almost about 30, 35 years now. The same brand. And I can still make out that if there is any changes in that, I can make out. So there's a lot of individual kind of, tastes and preferences that goes. So I'm just coming back to the example that I said. That's one of the potential drawbacks in M&A. The brand may get actually destroyed. It can go for an upswing. But on the flip side of it, it can be destroyed. Right? The company which is having more monopoly in the market can crush down the other one which was taken over. The second and the most, I'm not going through all the drawbacks. You can probably go through it. But the second drawback that I see is about the people process technology we just spoke about. People, for example, you may have to fire some people, right? Because you're doing a rationalization, you're doing an economy kind of a thing when an M&A deal actually happens. So there is very much a chance that you may have to ask people to say goodbye, thank you, thanks for your service. That is not very good, because there might be people who were there instrumental in putting up the company, and you're asking them to leave. So these are things which, and they may be oppressed, they may actually go for a legal case, and so on and so forth. So these are potential drawbacks. As I said, if you ask me, is the benefit good? Is the drawback good? Is the benefit more? Is the drawback more? Well, it depends on the deal. It totally depends on the deal. There are so many companies wherein which have gone into an M&A deal, and post the merger and acquisition, they have done very, very good. There are so many companies, they've got merged, they've got acquired, and what has happened is that both the companies have failed. They went into liquidation. Even that's possible. And one of the trade secrets that I can tell you, I can share with you, that I have actually observed doing almost $1 billion of structuring investment deals, is that it all depends on the people who are managing those companies, right? If you don't bring that particular passion that the initial company's management had, then it will definitely falter. I'll share an example, because I would like to go more into this particular slide, because this is the ship, the engine of the ship as such. We were doing a deal in the automotive sector in Budapest, Hungary. And if you look at Budapest, Hungary, the people are very passionate about cars. Okay? They're all very passionate about cars. There was a company which was started by an elderly, he was elderly at that time, he was old, by Mr. and Mrs. George. Okay? They started from a small room like this, and then what did they do? They started actually manufacturing leather seats for Mercedes, Porsche, Audi, Lamborghini, these kind of cars. And it all comes from that small factory that they have. And morning 7 o'clock, you'll have a line of people standing over there, ladies and gents, waiting to get into the factory, and they literally stitch it by hand. So part of the Porsche and Audi and Passat models that you see globally in the market the seats come from that particular factory. So we said we are going to acquire this as an investment bank. We said we are going to acquire this particular company. And we finally acquired it for some euros and millions of euros, and then we sold it. We sold it to some other automotive giant. But after about 5-6 years, I came to know that they lost contracts from Lamborghini, they lost contracts from Porsche, because that personal touch that Mr. and Mrs. George were doing, that this particular automotive giant, I cannot name the company, but that particular automotive giant could not, have those sentiments that these people had. So that's a potential drawback. Okay. Shall we move on to the next? Slide number 5, Anu. Anu, are you there? Yeah, thank you. This is a very interesting one. What are the types of mergers and acquisitions? Okay. Again, don't get bogged down with the jargons, but it is good to actually know these jargons, I would say. One is mergers. I've already spoken about that. I'm not going to go about. Acquisition, again, I've already said. Consolidations. Dr. Verghese had actually mentioned about this. Consolidations. Consolidation, what happens is that You may have, now this is very interesting. There could be a holding company. Like for example, let's suppose I'll take the example of Tata's. Okay. You may have a holding company and you may have subsidiary companies under those holding companies. And the cost which is something happened. See, we have a disruption with the technology today. So consolidations, as I was saying, these are internal consolidations that I mentioned. External consolidations also, happen. Wherein what happens is there could be while you're trying to consolidate internally, we can try to have somebody who's actually interested in this consolidation, and because of that a merger and acquisition happens. So if you see on the screen, the consolidations and the carve-outs are somewhere interrelated, and I'll come to carve-outs. Carve-outs is nothing but let's suppose you are you're into the retail chain. Let's suppose Lulu, for example. I'm sure that all of you would have heard about Lulu. Now, Lulu, let's suppose it is into furniture kind of a thing. They sell furniture. I'm just giving an example, okay? And they decide, Mr. Yusuf Ali decides that, no, I don't think I should get into furniture because my fixed cost is very high. My rotation is very low. I can probably, pump back that money into my retail business, so it's not worth it. Now, what does he do? If he thinks, let me actually now carve out this, let me take it out, let me pluck it, and maybe give it to home center. Right? That's a carve out. Simple terms. There are different types of carve outs. I don't want to get into the intricacies because carve out itself is a huge topic. I'll take an example just for your understanding. I was dealing with a company in US which is into, they invest into a nephrology department of hospitals. They don't invest into hospitals. They only invest into nephrology units in hospitals across the globe, including India, third world countries like Bangladesh. And it's what they used to do is that they used to go approach a hospital. They used to say, buy that. Whatever assets are there, what are the assets in a nephrology unit? You may have dialysis machines. So we'll do a valuation of the dialysis machines. And if we say, okay, there are about 20 dialysis machines, what is the warranty? How many hours? So in a dialysis machine, there is a ticker. There is something called as like a speedometer, which is how many hours the dialysis machine has actually been working. That is actually, your depreciation, everything is calculated based on that. I'm not going into the financial accounting aspect, but then I just wanted to tell you what is a carve out. These are examples of carve out. We call it as box-in-box carve outs. Probably you as financial professionals in the making, these are things that you can actually learn. You can try to do some research. What are different types of carve outs? Very recently, there are even very different structures in carve outs. I'll come to structures, not to confuse you, at a later point of time. And the rest of the two kinds of mergers and acquisition is called as a management acquisition. So what is a management acquisition? Well, let's suppose a company is actually having a board. There is management right. So they manage the particular company. Okay. Now there are two types of jargons that we use in M&A and investment banking. Very less people know about it, which I'll share with you. One is called as an LP. The second person is called as a GP. I don't know whether most of you would have heard it. If you have heard it, bingo, it's really good. An LP is a limited partner. A GP is a general partner. An LP is an investor. He only puts in money to buy a company, but he cannot run the show because he doesn't have the management skills, right? You can take a baby, you can actually bring a baby home, but you have to be a good mother or a father to raise the baby. Otherwise, what you will do? You will ask a nanny or a babysitter to come, and then you will say, "My dear, this is my baby, take care of him or her." A babysitter is nothing but a GP, okay? General partner who manages it. So what he will do? Madam, don't worry. I will, if that babysitter tells you as a mother or a father, uska Johnson and Johnson powder, I will bring. I will take care of his olive oils. I will take care of everything. Pay me this much. Pay me about, say, 25,000 every month. You don't have to bother about anything, but I will tell you what is a brand that I will bring. I'll bring the best towel. I will do everything. Okay? Now that's what a GP does. So what that babysitter is doing, she is literally actually not doing a management acquisition, right? She is saying, I'm going to manage the whole thing as far as your baby is concerned. You're the owner of the baby. But I'm acquiring your rights as a father and mother as far as, not in literal terms, okay? In terms of managing that particular baby. The management rights is going to go to the babysitter. That's the best example I can actually quote. So that's about management acquisitions. Last but not the least is about leveraged buyouts, LBO. Post-COVID, there's so many LBOs which are coming in the market. Why? Because people do not have money to pay to the banks. They are almost getting bankrupt. Credit is so high, they can't manage it. So let's suppose I see a company which is into this laptop manufacture, for example. And I decide that I see their balance sheet and I know that their debts are very, very high. Their monthly debt servicing is getting really messy. It's getting really slushy. And they're on the verge of a bankruptcy. Okay. Now, if I go and tell them, you know what, how much is the debt that you have in your balance sheet? If he says, okay, I have almost about, say, $20 million. And if I go and tell him, okay, boss, I will take over this entire debt. Which means, let's suppose Standard Chartered has actually given you $20 million, including interest on interest, blah, 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 everything. It comes to say about $25 million. So if I go and tell the company, I will pay this $25 million to Standard Chartered. You don't have to worry about it. Okay? That's a leverage buyout. But what will I get in return? You're going to issue me equity shares. Correct? That's leverage buyout. The leverage I am buying out. So what is the benefit for the company? Their interest is less. They don't have to pay any interest. Correct? I'm going to pay their interest. That's an LBO. Dr. Anu, can we move on to the next slide? Thank you. This is something which is my most passionate kind of a thing on structuring an investment deal. And in my career, that's what banks used to hire me for, and I used to be paid for this. As to how do you structure an M&A? What is structuring? Let's go back to a marriage example. Okay, the boy and the girl are going to get married. Okay, both the parents will sit and they will say, okay, the marriage function is going to happen in this manner, and in the meanwhile, you and your partner are going to go to the corner and you're going to spend some time, right? Maybe it is for n number of days. You may be meeting, you may be dating, whatever. So what happens is that when you and your partner are actually sitting and discussing on how are we going to make this marriage, what is going to be, what are the things that I'm going to take care, what are the things that you're going to take care, how will I take care of what is in for me, what is in for you, That's all about structuring. You're structuring it. In an M&A deal, what happens, there are different structures that you will actually do, depending on the nature of the merger that is actually going to happen. The objective behind the merger, why the merger is happening, is very important. So, for example, the first one is horizontal merger. That is, in a company, you may in a holding company, you may have same industry, it could be same sector, could be same meeting of objectives, could be, so the horizontal merger is there. So two companies that are in direct competition, same industry, and share the same products, same services. I mean, it may not be pie to pie. It may be something matching. Okay, for example, one company could be actually making steel, the other company may be doing something on spring steel, the other may be doing on something else. I don't know. So there is a common kind of a thing that actually is there between both the companies. Correct? So that's a horizontal merger. Vertical merger, where a company is a supplier and there is another company which is a customer. For example, there could be a lot of symbiotic kind of relationships, right? Automotive industry is one where there are so many spare parts which are actually manufactured, right? And that is the reason which people actually acquire those OEMs. And a very easy example I would think about is the ice cream industry. So if you're manufacturing ice cream, maybe you may want to acquire a company which manufactures cones, or a company which is into something which is ancillary to ice cream, which adds up, which is complementing the efforts and the revenues that this company actually notices. I'm not going into the rest of it because some are little complex, but I'll just pick out some which are actually and some are you don't see that in the markets every day. Like for example, concentric is not something which we see in daily markets, because now structuring has become very simpler. It is either horizontal, either it is vertical, or it could be a conglomeration. Two companies that do not have any kind of common business area, but as a matter of diversification, they want to actually get together. There is one more portion to structuring which I have not covered in this presentation. How do you structure is a science by itself. That's where you will pick out the financials, you will work on the IRR, you will see what is your exit multiple. So if I have put this much amount of money, how much I'm going to get back, and how do I do it? What is the structure? So a concept called as SPV, special purpose vehicles, special purpose entities, special purpose companies. These are jargons that you will see in the market, you will hear in the market. That's part of structuring. So the structure will be like a flow chart wherein we'll say, okay, company A is going to actually invest into a SPV, which will be only for giving the funds to this particular company. I may actually look at the taxation in which country I'm going to put this vehicle or a company as an SPV or an SPC, and how will I actually pump the money into the target company. Okay, so that's also a big kind of a thing, and that's also called as structuring. Okay, we'll move on to the next. Dr. Anna, I think you can try pressing F5 so that it goes on to the PPT mode. And move on to the next slide. Yeah. Okay. This is a very interesting slide, which talks about there are stages, there is a process in which an M&A deal is done. Okay. And sometimes we do some of these processes together also. We combine some processes. The first one is the acquisition strategy. Now let's suppose I'm I want to actually acquire. Yeah, now we can see. It's good. You can just press return. Yeah, fantastic. Great. I wish we could have thought about this earlier. Anyway, better late than never. The first is the acquisition strategy. Acquisition strategy is, yes, I want to buy this particular company. What is my strategy in acquiring it? Why do I want to acquire? And there are two facets to it. Am I acquiring it strategically? Am I acquiring it financially? Right? Strategically, for me, there could be a strategy. There could be a symbiotic, whatever we covered earlier. It could be that. Financially is that I don't know anything about that particular industry. I'm going to put about $10 million. I need this much amount of return on investments. Right? So what is the acquisition strategy? Why am I doing the acquisition? Why, how, when? These are three questions which are actually thought about in an acquisition strategy. What is the criteria? How am I going to do it? We spoke about a lot of things. We spoke about leverage buyout. What is the criteria on which I'm going to actually do the acquisition? Okay, this much I've actually thought. Then we say that, okay, let's look out for companies which will suit this particular rationales. So acquisition criteria can also be acquisition rationales. I may actually think about saying that, boss, I'm going to actually invest. I'm going to acquire companies. I'm going to keep it for 5 years. Then I'm going to exit it. Right? And that's when I'm going to make big money. So that could be my acquisition criteria. And I'll start searching for targets. And during those searching targets, I will definitely go back to my acquisition strategy, which will say, am I going to invest in small caps, mid caps, large caps? And we are talking about unlisted companies here. Okay, we are not talking about, sorry, I should have mentioned it earlier. M&A, most of it is unlisted, but there is no compulsion that it has to be unlisted. Even publicly traded companies also get into M&A process. There's nothing stopping it. But majority M&A actually came into the limelight through unlisted securities. Unlisted entities was the one which brought about the process called M&A. Okay, searching for target, acquisition planning, valuation, very, very important. What is the price that I'm going to pay for the acquisition? What is the price that I'm going to pay for doing this particular deal? How much the company is valued at? And that's when companies may go to big four like EY, Deloitte, KPMG, and everyone, and they would say that, guys, please actually do a valuation for me. Right? Let's suppose these consultants actually come back to you and they say, you know what, this company you were talking about $50 million, it's bullshit. It's only about $20 million. There you go. You're going to thump your back and you're going to say, tomorrow I'm having a meeting with this guy. And practically we have gone into that also. I mean, when we were acquiring a couple of companies in Germany, the previous day we all went for dinner along with the owners. We had a good time. And by then, I think KPMG was doing the valuation, and the partner of KPMG Germany, he was also there in that particular, invite dinner. And then while we were traveling in the car, he said, Harry, please do not quote more than 22 million euros. They're asking for 40. It is not worth it. And the next day, guess what? We got the company for 18.5 million euros. And we sold it at 35 million euros in 6 years. So valuation is a very big piece of the whole kind of things that we are talking about, which is also good for you to negotiate. You go to the market, let's suppose you see this cup and the guy says, okay, you know what, this is bone china. This I sell it at about say 2,000 rupees, but you know that this is not worth the value attached to this is not more than 1,000 rupees. I can negotiate. Similarly, the next important step is the due diligence. Due diligence is nothing but an audit, but in a very rudimentary manner, I'm saying it's an audit. So let's suppose I'm buying a company and then we both have agreed on the price. And you say, okay, boss, $20 million. I'm okay for it. But I need to know what has been happening in your company. I don't know about it. So I'm going to appoint EY, I'm going to appoint KPMG, I'm going to appoint Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, or whoever. And I'm going to send them to your company, wherein they're going to go through the entire process. They're going to actually they're going to give a scope on procurement to pay, retire to hire, all those processes they're going to take. Your sales, purchase, HR, everything they're going to take and say in about 30 days, they're going to come back with a report to say, these are your issues. Are there any frauds that have taken place? Are you hiding anything? That's what is due diligence. It's a very, very important process. There are deals which have actually gone bust at the last moment when the due diligence reports actually came negative. There are deals where the due diligence was very positive and the negotiation actually became more on the better side of the other party, the seller party. Finally, what you do is that you sign a purchase and sales contract. That's where you will say, okay, I'm going to buy this company at so and so, my management. It's a very, very detailed kind of a document. Then you do your financing, which is about your debt financing, and your equity structures. How am I going to do it? For every 3 shares of this, you will give me 1 share of this. You will actually sell some of your stakes. Is there a capital increase that you will do, which is something which I will be getting in? All those things will be encompassed under financing. And finally, you implement it. So this is the overall M&A process. A very, very important kind of a slide for aspiring M&A professionals in this target audience. This is kind of a Bible for any M&A deal. We call it as an investment cycle as such, or an M&A process. Doctor, can you move on to the next slide? Give me a minute. Okay. Right. Wow. Now, no, the other one. Yes, thanks, sir. Again, I'm coming back to the structuring of an M&A deal. There are so many things. I'll probably, leave this presentation with you so that you can go through it in detail. I'll be more than happy. But very quickly, in the interest of time, there are certain facets of a structuring environment. What do we do in a deal? There is a structuring environment. And structuring assumes a lot of importance as far as any deal is concerned, as I was telling you. What is the structuring environment all about? Structuring environment is a deal. What is a deal? And how am I? So the deal itself, when you start thinking about the deal, and I'll tell you, if you're an investment banker, the only thing that you have to do is think. You just have to think on the deal. So the structuring environment is dependent solely on the deal. Why am I doing this deal? What is the structuring that I should do? I mean, we have sat for almost 3-4 days idle and just thought, writing in the drawing board and all those things. How do I structure it? The more you think, you can bring up with better structures. The second one is a transaction environment. Very beautiful point. So there are two environments. One is a structuring environment. The second one is a transaction environment. Both are different, but they are interconnected. Okay. The transaction environment is what? These are the external environment which has a direct influence on my structure. It's directly proportional to my structuring that I'm going to actually do. These could be, what is a business plan? What am I going to do with it? What are the market conditions? What are the proposed market conditions also? What are the competition that is actually there? What is the upswing that I will get once I acquire? And we spoke about the Hamam Unilever kind of examples. Similar. Transaction character. What is the character of the particular transaction? And finally, preferred finance. Preferred finance, we can talk at least about say 20-30 hours today. It's a huge subject. Different types of finance are there. Not to confuse you. You have equity, you have debt. Different types of debts are there. There's bonds, there are mezzanine financing, there is junior debt, there is senior debt. There are other structures also that we may actually do. I may pick up a bank guarantee and I may actually, connect it with a capital guarantee. That's also debt. So all types of, there are different types of, there are even warrants, which is basically, it's a switchover. When I mean switchover, I will invest as a debt, but I can, it's more like a convertible. So these are all, that's what I said. I don't want to confuse on that, but food for thought. Do some research. What are the different types of debts? I'll just share an instance. When I was in the investment banking, I tried a different type of debt, which was, I tried money. I thought about a structure for one of the companies and I called it as drip debt. It is, I will not give the debt in one shot. If I have committed to the company, I will give you $10 million as debt. I will see how is the performance and I will keep on increasing like a drip. In Malayalam, what we call as Madatulli. It's like that. That's also a type of debt. So there are so many things. See, M&A is an ocean. The only thing is that you need passion. And more than reading from books, M&A comes from experience. And of course, there are other aspects, which is the contract, accounting, tax, I'm not getting it all of this. That's something which you already know, I believe. We'll move on to the next slide. Lenomina, please let me know if time is getting, give me a time check, please. Feel free. Yeah, okay. Good. Some of the biggest M&A deals, I'll probably, pick up the Indian markets, which is Flipkart acquiring Myntra. And that was for almost about 2,000 crores. Zomato, recently we saw. And to be very frank, I still don't know how Zomato deal actually took about a valuation of almost about 2,500 crores, in spite of the fact that it was a loss-making company. Okay. That's my personal kind of, whatever I'm telling you today is all my personal views. And this is what I feel. Idea for Vodafone. Today, they are on the brink of being bust. 3 weeks back, Mr. Birla has actually gone to the government and said that, okay, I'm ready to give all these things to the government. So again, we just spoke about mergers, what are the pitfalls? This was a big, big deal. It was such a huge deal, but then what happened? They are ready to now give it to Airtel also. Tata brought from Ford the Jaguar Land Rover for $2.3 billion. And it was initially a loss making, but they shifted it. It reported almost about 3,000, almost about 3.4. I think there is an error. It's $340 million, 2019. And so these are some of the deals, and I would still say that Facebook acquiring Instagram, Facebook acquiring WhatsApp, whopping $22 billion as far as WhatsApp deal is concerned. Now, even today, what was the rationale behind acquiring WhatsApp? Was the data. Data is the next oil. And it's all about the data. Initially, they thought that, okay, we'll acquire WhatsApp, we'll start adding a fee and all those things, but then it didn't work out. But it is all about data. Now, when you're on your WhatsApp, there is so much amount of things that Facebook can actually get. Correct? So that is the data mining aspects which are actually coming. Yes, there are a lot of security aspects which are involved, but it is all about the data. Can we move on to the next, Dr. Yeah, these are some of the global deals also, like Glaxo, Smithkline Beecham merger, which was all big. And these are all, see, the good thing, some of the big deals that actually happened, the pharmaceutical industry, Pfizer and Warner Lambert. These are actually, Dutch Petroleum and Shell actually got merged. A lot of strategic investments actually took place. A lot of strategic driven M&A took place. And if you really ask me, I'm very passionate about strategic M&A more than financial M&A. Because strategic M&A actually comes, there is a life to it. When you acquire a company, because I'm acquiring in that particular company, there is a lot of upswing that actually comes into it. Okay. The next slide, Lakshana. Doctor, are you there? Yeah. Very, very interesting for all of you. What are the careers that are actually involved in the M&A process? Now, what you see on the right-hand side is what are the kind of functions that M&A professionals actually do. It could be portfolio management, it could be research, it could be private equity, and so on and so forth. But if you see on the left-hand side, it starts with an analyst. Who is an analyst? In an M&A analyst is a first level kind of stepping stone into the M&A world. What he or she does is they actually go through the deal, they see as to whether it makes sense, what are the slicing and dicing of the deal. All those things actually the analyst actually knows. And typical educational qualification is you can be a chartered accountant, you can be an MBA, you may, I would personally say CFA is one of the best qualification for you to get into M&A kind of a thing, because that gives you a lot of, that slicing and dicing. The analytical skill sets are very important, at least till you move out to a vice president. Okay. And MBA definitely, if you're an MBA in finance, it definitely, adds up to your value as far as the M&A career is concerned. And then into a vice president, but again, these designations that I'm talking about, across various investment banks, the designations differ. Like, if you move to an investment bank, we are not called as vice president. We are called as principals, and a senior vice president is called as a senior principal. So these designations actually change. If it's a private equity boutique company, then it could be a partner. That's ultimate. So these are careers that are actually, from a professional services industry where I currently work, after coming back from the investment banking, core investment banking, professional services, there's a lot of actually opportunities. I'll be very frank with you. And that's the reason I thought I should move on to professional services, wherein we are helping clients in M&A advisory. And here, the good thing about being in the professional services industry as far as M&A support is concerned is that you get to know a lot of industries. There is no monotony, right? You may be doing structuring, you may be doing due diligences, you may be doing valuations, and all those things. So that's something very beautiful about professional services industry also. And there's a lot of careers that are actually coming up in the professional services industry for people like you. And please actually keep your eyes and ears open for any careers which are actually happening. Because the reason I'm saying, investment banks, the number of jobs are less when it comes to professional services in India. Those are fairly less. But these are careers which are actually emerging. Startups, for example. I've not covered startup in this because that's a different subject altogether. Startups, venture capital are areas where there's a lot of career which is actually, it comes with the risk. I understand. You never know, tomorrow you may not get a salary. Okay. But these are careers which are actually, there are very good startups which pay really well. They then are acquired by other companies. And then your salary actually goes from X amount to almost about 20 times of that. So we have seen those cases also. So keep a watch on this. Career in M&A is, in the coming years, it will definitely, again, jumpstart more and more, I feel. And it's a very, very interesting profession. Trust me. I can talk in my dream also on investments and M&A. It's something which is very close to my heart. and you will love the profession. The only thing is that you'll have to have a passion. Whatever you do, I always believe that you should have a passion. If you're not passionate, then you're selecting a wrong profession. Right? Can we move on to the next, doctor? There we go. So that's all from me. We'll move on to the question and answer. I already have Reshma who's coming on video.
Now it's time for the Q&A session. If anyone wants to ask any questions, please do come forward.
Hello, sir. Hope you're good.
I'm good.
I
Thank
do
you.
have a question. So, what's the difference between management-led buyouts and leveraged buyouts?
Good. So management-led buyouts, I think I heard it as buyouts, right?
Yes, sir, buyouts.
Yeah. In leveraged buyout, what happens is that, let's suppose the company has a lot of debts. There are a lot of debts that are actually sitting on the company's balance sheet. And the company does not have money to pay its interest also. So me as an acquisition company who's going to acquire that particular company can say, I will take over the entire debts. So whatever you have to give to the bank, I will pay. You give me shares for it. But I may or may not be in the management. Right? That's a leverage buyout. In a management buyout, I told you the example. I don't know whether you were there at that time. I told the example of a babysitter and babysitter's example. That's a management buyout, wherein I say I will come, and that's a pure GP business, wherein I'm saying the management is the only one that I'm taking over. Okay, I will manage the whole show. That's a management buyout. And there is another facet to management buyout is, let's suppose I'm coming in as a private equity, investor, or I'm acquiring a company. I may actually say, no, I don't want this management. I'm going to change the entire management. I'm going to put my management. Okay. That is also a management buyout, which is part of normal, acquisition that actually happens. But leveraged buyout is a kind of acquisition where it is debt I'm acquiring. Did you get what you were looking out for?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you.
Hi, sir. Myself, Reshma. I'm an MCOM first year student. So my question is, what is the difference between an external consolidation and an internal consolidation?
Good question. See, let me start from the internal consolidation. Let's suppose, let's take an example. Reliance, fantastic example it is. I think they should do a lot of consolidation, but they're not doing. Reliance has so many, subsidiaries, divisions probably. And when they decide to consolidate it into one, it's an internal consolidation. Now, let's suppose there are companies or subsidiaries which are there, and I decide to actually, do an acquisition with. I'm a sell side kind of a company. Reliance, I'm planning to, consolidate it. I'm not going to sell it off completely, but I may try to, consolidate. I may have a company in some other location, for example, as a joint venture. Joint venture is also nature of a structure that we may have. And I may decide that, okay, that joint venture company is going to get merged with this subsidiary of mine. That's an external consolidation. That company, I may or may not have complete shareholding. It could be a joint venture. But that company as a vehicle, acquiring this company on an external basis is called as external consolidation. Internally, this is my balance sheet related kind of a thing. I'm not inviting anybody else into participating on that. It's more of merging or putting together two divisions, two subsidiaries internally for rationalizing, cost minimization, and so on and so forth. Is internal consolidation. Did it answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Hi, sir. Myself, Richo, first year student of MCO Finance and Taxation. My doubt is enterprise value is greatly influenced by a company's stock share price, cash value, etc. Can an organization have a negative enterprise value?
Sorry, Reto, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat it?
So, enterprise value is greatly influenced by a company's stock share price, cash value, etc. Can an
Yes.
organization have a negative enterprise value?
It can. It can. What kind of companies can have? Companies which are startups can definitely have. It will definitely have. We have seen many companies wherein startup companies where your EV is negative. So the answer to your question is yes.
Okay, sir.
What I suggest is that if you look at some of the go to Hoovers.com. In the US, you will have a lot of startup companies wherein you could actually search out negative EV companies also. There are. Anybody else?
Hi, sir.
Hi, Neha.
Hi, sir. Myself Neha from first year MCOM. And sir, my question is, what are the implications while a company overpaying on acquisition?
What are the implications? What is the next point you said?
So, what are the implications while a company overpaying on acquisition?
Overpaying. You mean overpaying, you said, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a good question that you asked, because in today's industry, that's what is happening. One of the main pitfalls. What is meant by overpay? Right? I told about this example. If I have to pay 1,000 rupees for this cup, and tomorrow you are coming as I'm shopping, and you say, oh, okay. You see this in some of the apparel stores. Normally, when I used to go to Chennai, go to Nalli silks and all those things, the women folk will pick up a sari, which is a silk sari. And if there is somebody else who is saying, okay, how much is this? This is 10,000. I'm ready to pay 12,000. You'd say, I would pay 15,000. Correct? The valuation of that particular product, that particular company, is what decides what is the right price that you need to actually pay. If you overpay, now going as per examples, what has happened is here, your return on investments and the payback period can be impacted. So if you're paying 10 rupees and you're making, and your return on investment is 12% and your payback period is 3 years, instead of that, if you pay 20, automatically it will go different. Your return on investment, your IRR, internal rate of return, your payback, even your net present value may actually change. It may even be negative. It may even actually result in the company going for a toss because you're paid more, right? The stress that you actually have to do when you pay more is high. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Dear Sari sir, I am a faculty
Hi,
member
Dr.
of faculty member of Kristiyodi College, Commerce Department. So your
Hi.
excellent talk actually attracted me, and it is a crucial issue in this business world because the relevance of this acquisition and mergers are increasing rate in a wider scale at very large. In this talk, you defined different types of mergers and acquisitions in a mixed up manner. So I think what are the type of mergers and what are the type of acquisitions separately? So I feel that the type of acquisitions or the type of mergers are mainly in the Indian context are two types. One is the absorption and the other is the consolidation. So because the students may mix it up with these things together. So we can demarcate these two into each one. And there is also a confusing jargon with amalgamation and takeover also. So I think that the amalgamation, actually that word got currency from 1961 onwards to the introduction of the Income Tax Act 1961. So in the Income Tax Act, amalgamation is used instead of merger. So people are confused whether it is a merger or amalgamation is a separate one or not. Likewise, in the section of acquisition, in India, most of them, mostly we use, particularly SEBI and RBI, we use they use the takeover. So I think that takeover and acquisition are the same thing.
It's the same.
Yes. In the Indian context, we are using these two things in different levels. So you have cited many recent mergers and acquisitions at the world level, citing the countries from US based to other big players in the international business. So therefore, this must be convinced by the students that merger is nothing but amalgamation and acquisition is nothing but takeover in.
Absolutely, doctor. You said it. Absolutely, you said it. See, the terminologies that I have used is in the global industry aspect. But you're right. When we were doing a chartered accounting also during financial accounting in books and the things, and in the Indian context, it is more of absorption, amalgamation, takeover.
Because this is used by different control powers.
But when you go to, sorry, I'm interrupting you, doctor. But when you go to the investment banking and when you sit as in the investment banking sector, the terminologies that I have used is normally used. Normally at a global frame, amalgamation they don't use. They call it as either a buyout or partial buyout. These are kind of things. But from a statute perspective, as you rightly said, SEBI, Income Tax Act, takeover norms of SEBI, all these actually define as takeover only. They never even call it as merger. Right?
Because it is.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I just had a question, a very interesting one. I don't know who put it on the chat box. That post-COVID, will we see more of, what was the question? Let me just take a look. Sir, will COVID-19 turbocharge M&A and transformation? I think yes, it will. I think there's a lot of consolidation that will happen post-COVID. Lot of leverage buyouts, like somebody asked me the question on LBO. That will definitely happen. Because now presently in the Indian context as well as the global context, emerging markets, the debt servicing ratio is going for a huge issue. The liquidity ratio is actually, really questioned these days. The going concern, that itself is being questioned. So, to answer your point, post-COVID, I think it will turbocharge.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yes. Sir, myself Akshay MCOM student here in Christiodi College. So my question is this: the merger and acquisition have become a necessity in these days of globalization. Do you agree with that, or what is your opinion about that?
I wouldn't say a necessity. Okay, I think we are using the wrong word with due respects. I think it is always consolidation and economizing.
ആര്
Hello?
അവിടെ ഒരു ഇത് പോവാന് ഒരു കറുത്ത പാടുണ്ട്.
Somebody is talking. If they can mute. Joy. Thank you. Yeah, actually. So it is not a necessity. But if you really see, I'll use a different terminology to it. I think it has become a norm that acquisitions or mergers or M&A deals actually bring about more rigor in the economy. So if you see it in the manner that you said, is it necessary? My personal thought would be, I think it is necessary. It is. But that's my individual thought. People may differ on that. They may say that no, it is not necessary. We can still operate. We can still. So I'll tell you a classic example. SIG companies,
Yes,
the Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction was formed. After that, what happened? Nothing happened. Finally, what happened? Those companies were acquired only. Right?
yes,
If you are wearing a Titan watch, we all wear Titan, right? Do you know the Titan story? I was part of that, audit when I was in EY in '94. Titan was a SIG company, and Tata took over that company. And what you see today as Tanishq and Titan are those companies which Board of Industrial for Financial Reconstruction gave it to Tata. And they said, please take over this company. The watch that we wear today, Titan and Tanishq, the jewelry one, those are all, acquired companies. So is it necessary? That's a food for thought for you.
okay, thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Jeffy, and I am
Hi.
second year BCom student. And so my question is, what is the impact of M&A on shareholders' wealth?
Come again?
What is the impact of M&A on shareholders' wealth?
Fantastic question. I was just waiting why somebody is not hitting upon the shareholders aspect. It's a wonderful question. See, it depends on I'll try to answer this because there's a lot of facets to answering this particular question because it depends on the deal. Okay. The shareholders' wealth, if you look at if an M&A is happening, what are the good things that is going to happen because of the M&A? Obviously, your market capitalization is going to grow up if it is a publicly traded equity, which if the capitalization is going to go up, obviously your upswing in the stock prices will definitely happen, which will impact the shareholders' equity. The shareholders' equity will definitely go up. Your dividend per share will go up. Your enterprise value itself will grow. Correct? So that is one impact. The second impact, if it is an unlisted companies, what happens? If it is an unlisted company on the shareholders' wealth, because the merger is happening, there is going to be more operations that are going to happen. See, no two companies come together to say that if we were doing 100 crores, we are going to still do 100 crores. No, it will never happen. Then you don't have to do an acquisition. There is either, even if both the companies decide after we get merged, after the M&A deal is over, we are still going to do 100 crores, but your earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, your EBITDA margins, your price to earning ratio, that's going to change because you're going to minimize on the cost. If you minimize on the cost, your net profit increases. If your net profit increases, your reserves and surpluses actually increases. If your reserves and surpluses are increasing, shareholders bulk allowance increase, right? Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. I think we are done with the time, Dr. Anu. Shall we take one more question and wrap it up?
Okay, sir. No problem.
Anybody else? You can probably post your questions to Dr. Anu, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. If there is anything else, and Doctor, you can share the presentation with them, with all the students, and I'll give my personal mail ID also. If anybody wants to have any doubts, any clarifications, I'm more than happy. Any help that I can do, I'll be more than happy.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. And it was wonderful, actually, being with all of you, and wishing you all the very best. Stay safe. And I just want to, conclude by thanking the management, Dr. Verghese, Reverend Father also, and everyone for this opportunity. It's a wonderful profession, wonderful subject. I mean, a lot of things that you can actually, again, you're just getting into your career. Please think about it. And anything, any help from my side, more than happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
As a token of love, I invite Dr. Anu Antony, Assistant Professor, Chris Jyoti College of Management and Technology, to present the certificate of gratitude to Mr. Hari Janardhanan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now,
I'm humbled.
I invite Mr. Tito Matthew, Assistant Professor, Chris Jyoti College of Management and Technology, to propose the vote of thanks.
Hello, is it audible? Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Proceed. Proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon to one and all. The responsibility entrusted upon me today is to express my gratitude towards all the eminent dignitaries present on this virtual platform. Let me first of all start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's event a resounding success. Reverend Father Joshi Chiramkuri CMI, Principal, Christi Jyoti College of Management and Technology, is a charismatic personality and who is the central pillar of Christi Jyoti College. With all my heart, I express my sincere gratitude to you, Father. Mr. Hari Janardhanan, Director, EYGDS, keynote speaker, is a personality with intellectual caliber, academic credentials, and great confidence. The talk he showered upon us will be an asset in our life. I express my gratitude to you, sir, for being part of this great endeavor.
Thank you.
Dr. Verghese Andy, Vice Principal and HOD of Commerce, Christi Jyoti College, is an academician of great repute and immense value, an inevitable part of Christi Jyoti family. We are blessed to have you, sir, on this occasion. I also express my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Vinu Shankar for your support for the success of this event. I thank the faculties of CET Trivandrum for their kind-hearted association with our college for the success of this event. Dr. Anu Antony, NAC Accuracy Coordinator, PG Course Coordinator, is an outstanding personality who always gives much importance for the overall development of students and her colleagues. More than a wonderful human being, she is a very sincere teacher. I thank her for her immense support. I also express my thankfulness to all the faculties and members, students of Christi Jyoti College. Once again, I extend my sincere gratitude to you all. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you, Hari sir.
Thank you, Dr. Anu. Thank you all, and stay safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your support and cooperation. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, sir.